The pheromone emitter in Jesse Miller's pocket activates with an imperceptible click, sending waves of invisible attraction through the crowded alien nightclub. Iridian females nearby freeze, their tentacle-like appendages quivering with unfamiliar sensations. Jesse, the first human ambassador to Aridus, remains oblivious to the device's sudden activation as he faces Nora, the lead Iridian negotiator, across a sleek metallic table. The nightclub's pulsing lights and throbbing bass provide a stark backdrop to the tense diplomatic meeting. Chosen for its neutrality, the venue now becomes ground zero for an interstellar incident. Nora's iridescent skin flushes a deep purple, her compound eyes widening as she struggles to maintain composure. Other Iridian females in the delegation shift uncomfortably, their normally fluid movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. Jesse leans forward, his brow furrowed in concentration. As I was saying, the trade agreement would benefit both our species. He stops mid-sentence, noticing the sudden change in the Iridian's behavior. Confusion flickers across his face as he watches Nora's breathing quicken, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Across the room, Ambassador Sarah Chen observes the interaction with growing concern. She steps forward, her crisp suit a stark contrast to the Iridian's flowing robes. "Is everything all right?" she calls out, her voice barely audible over the club's music. Before Jesse can respond, Iridian security forces surge forward, their tentacles coiled tightly around their weapons, misinterpreting the female's distress as a sign of human aggression. "Step away from the negotiator," one barks, its translator struggling to convey the urgency in its clicks and whistles. Jesse raises his hands, bewildered. "There's been a misunderstanding," he begins, but his words are drowned out by the commotion. Nora sways on her feet, her usual diplomatic poise crumbling as she grapples with the intense, unfamiliar physical response coursing through her body. The human delegation rushes to intervene, forming a protective circle around Jesse. Ambassador Chen's voice cuts through the chaos. "We demand an explanation for this outrageous behavior." As security forces close in, Jesse feels a warm vibration against his thigh. His eyes widen in horrified realization as he reaches into his pocket and brushes against the active pheromone emitter. In that moment, he understands the full impact of the device on the Iridian females surrounding him. Nora locks eyes with Jesse, her gaze a mixture of confusion and growing fascination. The lead negotiator finds herself torn between her diplomatic duties and an inexplicable attraction to the human ambassador. Her preconceptions about humans shatter as she grapples with her species' limited understanding of interspecies attraction. Jesse's mind races. The fragile human-Iridian relations hang in the balance. Access to vital Iridian technology, crucial for combating an impending threat from a hostile alien race, now lies in jeopardy. He must find a way to deactivate the device and explain the situation before it's too late. The nightclub descends into chaos. Iridian females press closer, drawn by the irresistible pheromones, while security forces tighten their cordon. Jesse stands at the center of the storm, the fate of two species resting on his next move. With the device still active in his pocket and Nora's conflicted gaze upon him, he takes a deep breath, preparing to navigate the most delicate diplomatic crisis in human history. Jesse's mind raced as he formulated a plan. With trembling fingers, he reached into his pocket, desperately trying to deactivate the pheromone emitter. His clumsy movements caught the attention of the Iridian security forces, who tensed visibly. "He's reaching for a weapon!" One of the guards clicked in their native language, the translator struggling to keep up. In that moment, Nora made a decision that would alter the course of the night. She lunged forward, placing herself between Jesse and the advancing guards. "Stop!" she commanded, her normally melodious voice strained with effort. The sudden contact between them sent a jolt through both their bodies. Jesse felt a tingling sensation where Nora's skin touched his, and he watched in fascination as her iridescent skin pulsed with waves of vibrant color. Suddenly, the nightclub's environmental controls malfunctioned. The temperature began to rise rapidly, and Jesse felt beads of sweat forming on his forehead. The heat seemed to intensify the pheromones' effects on the Iridian females. Their skin patterns shifted and swirled in mesmerizing displays of bioluminescence. Jesse found himself captivated by the spectacle, momentarily forgetting the dire situation. He watched as Nora's skin flickered with patterns he'd never seen before, her compound eyes reflecting the pulsing lights of the club. Ambassador Sarah Chen's voice cut through the chaos. Initiating emergency protocol Alpha 3. Before Jessie could react, a wave of electromagnetic energy swept through the club. The lights flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. The pulsing music cut off abruptly, leaving an eerie silence broken only by the confused murmurs of the crowd. In the sudden quiet, Jessie felt Nora's breath on his ear. "What's happening?" she whispered, her voice a mixture of confusion and something else, something Jessie couldn't quite identify. "The pheromone emitter," Jessie explained in hushed tones, seizing the opportunity. "It activated accidentally. I'm so sorry, I had no idea." Nora's grip on his arm tightened. "Pheromones? But that would mean—" Her words were cut short as the backup generators hummed to life, casting the club in a dim reddish glow. Jessie could see the conflict in Nora's eyes as she struggled with her emotions. "Stand down," Nora ordered, her voice carrying authority despite its tremor. "This is a misunderstanding." The Iridian security forces hesitated, their tentacles still coiled tightly around their weapons. The tense standoff was broken by the arrival of a new figure. Zaxalor, the Iridian Minister of Interspecies Relations, burst into the room, his robes billowing behind him. "What is the meaning of this?" Zaxalor demanded, his voice booming through the translator. Jessie stepped forward, his heart pounding. "Sir, I take full responsibility. The pheromone device activated accidentally. I'm willing to submit to any medical examination to prove no harm was intended." Zaxalor's compound eyes narrowed, focusing intently on Jessie. "A pheromone device? Fascinating. Perhaps this incident could prove enlightening for both our species." As if on cue, the other Iridian females in the room began to exhibit strange behaviors. They moved with an unusual fluidity, reaching out to touch each other and nearby objects. Soft trills and clicks filled the air as they vocalized in ways Jessie had never heard before. The Iridian males in the room watched with a mixture of alarm and curiosity. One of them approached Zaxalor, gesticulating wildly. "Minister, we've never seen the females act like this. What should we do?" Before Zaxalor could respond, a team of Iridian medical personnel arrived. Dr. Zyra, the lead physician, immediately began assessing the affected Iridians. "I volunteer to be examined first," Jessie said, stepping towards Dr. Zyra. He hoped this gesture would help rebuild the trust he'd inadvertently shattered. As Dr. Zyra ran various instruments over Jessie's body, her eyes widened. "This is remarkable," she exclaimed. "The human's biochemistry has been altered. He's become receptive to Iridian pheromones." Nora, who had insisted on overseeing the examination, leaned in closer. "What does that mean exactly?" Dr. Zyra's tentacles waved excitedly. "It means we may have stumbled upon a new form of interspecies communication. But there's more." She turned her instruments on Nora. "Your own physiology is changing, negotiator. Your proximity to the human is causing subtle alterations in your biochemical makeup." As the implications of Dr. Zyra's findings sank in, the room buzzed with activity. Human and Iridian journalists who had been covering the trade negotiations clamored for information, their recording devices capturing every moment of the unfolding drama. Ambassador Chen pushed through the crowd, her face a mask of dedication. "We need to control this narrative," she said to Jessie. "The media is already calling it pheromone diplomacy. This could overshadow everything we've worked for." Jessie nodded, his palms sweating from the night's events. He looked at Nora, who seemed equally shaken. "We need to address this head-on," he said. "Together." Zaxalor approached them, his expression unreadable. "I agree. We will convene a meeting immediately to discuss how to proceed. This incident may have opened doors we never knew existed." As they were ushered into a secure meeting room, Jessie felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. The pheromone emitter, still in his pocket, now felt like the key to a Pandora's box of interstellar relations. He glanced at Nora, noticing the way her skin still shimmered with unfamiliar patterns. Whatever happened next, he knew their lives, and the future of human-Iridian relations, would never be the same. As Jessie and Nora entered the secure meeting room, the air crackled with tension. Zaxalor, the Iridian Minister of Interspecies Relations, took his place at the head of the table, his compound eyes scanning the assembled group. Ambassador Chen sat rigidly in her chair, her fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on the polished surface. "Let's address the Gorgon in the room," Zaxalor began, his translator struggling to convey the nuances of the Iridian idiom. "The incident at the nightclub has created a unique situation." Jesse shifted uncomfortably, acutely aware of the pheromone emitter still nestled in his pocket. Nora's skin pulsed with muted colors, her tentacle-like appendages curling and uncurling, in what Jesse had come to recognize as a sign of agitation. "Minister," Ambassador Chen interjected, her voice steady despite the circumstances, "we propose a solution that could turn this incident into an opportunity for both our species." All eyes turned to Chen as she outlined the cultural exchange program. Jesse listened with growing disbelief as he realized he was being volunteered for an extended stay on Aridus. His gaze darted to Nora, whose iridescent skin flushed a deep purple. "And you believe this human should be our test subject?" Zaxalor asked, his tentacles waving in a pattern that suggested skepticism. "I'll do it," Jesse said, surprising himself with the firmness of his voice. "If it will help salvage our negotiations and foster understanding between our species, I'm willing to stay on Aridus." Nora's compound eyes widened, her skin flickering with rapid color changes. I volunteer to act as liaison for Ambassador Miller during his stay," she said, her translator barely keeping up with her rushed clicks and whistles. Zaxalor's tentacles twitched in what might have been amusement. "Very well. We shall make the necessary arrangements. Dr. Zira will oversee the medical aspects of this exchange." As the meeting concluded, Jesse found himself swept up in a whirlwind of preparations. Dr. Zira presented him with a modified pheromone emitter, its sleek design belying its potential impact on Iridian society. "This device will allow for controlled release of human pheromones," Dr. Zira explained, her tentacles gesticulating excitedly. "It should facilitate your integration while minimizing unintended effects. However, I must stress that we are in uncharted territory. The long-term impact on both you and our people remains unknown." Jesse nodded, the weight of responsibility settling heavily on his shoulders. As he prepared to board the transport to Lumina, the Iridian capital city, Ambassador Chen pulled him aside. "Remember, Jesse," she said, her voice low and urgent, "the success of our trade negotiations depends on this exchange. We're counting on you." The journey to Lumina passed in a blur of swirling colors and alien landscapes. Jesse found himself constantly aware of Nora's presence beside him, her scent unlike anything he had experienced before. As they disembarked in the heart of the Iridian capital, Jesse was struck by the city's organic architecture, buildings that seemed to pulse and breathe in the alien sunlight. Their first days in Lumina were a series of cultural misunderstandings and awkward encounters. Jesse's presence caused a stir wherever they went, Iridian females reacting strongly to his pheromones despite the controlled release from the modified emitter. Nora struggled to maintain her professional demeanor, her skin betraying her inner turmoil with each interaction. During a tour of Lumina's central marketplace, disaster struck. Jesse, distracted by the dizzying array of alien fruits and artifacts, accidentally activated his pheromone emitter at full power. The effect was instantaneous and chaotic. Iridian females in the vicinity froze, their appendages quivering. Then, as if a dam had burst, they surged towards Jesse en masse. Nora grabbed Jesse's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Run!" she clicked urgently, her translator barely keeping up. They dashed through the marketplace, dodging tentacles and overturning stalls in their wake. Jesse caught glimpses of Iridian media drones hovering above, capturing every moment of the unfolding chaos. They ducked into a nondescript building, slamming the door behind them. As they caught their breath, Jesse realized they were in some kind of abandoned facility. Dust-covered consoles lined the walls, their displays dark and lifeless. "Where are we?" Jesse asked, his voice echoing in the empty space. Nora's skin pulsed with uncertainty. "I'm not sure. This area was supposed to be a public archive, but it looks like—" Her words trailed off as her gaze fell on a still-active console in the corner. They approached cautiously, Nora's tentacles dancing over the alien interface. The screen flickered to life, revealing a trove of classified files. Project Empathy Prime. Jessie read aloud, the translator struggling with the Iridian script. As they delved deeper into the files, the true nature of the project became clear. The Iridian government had been secretly working to enhance their species' emotional capacity, concerned about the impact of their limited emotional range on interspecies relations. This explains so much, Nora whispered, her skin rippling with a mix of emotions Jessie couldn't fully interpret. The way our people have been reacting to your pheromones, it's activating parts of our brains that have been dormant for generations. Before Jessie could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the facility. They turned to see Zaxalor enter the room, flanked by Iridian security personnel. The minister's compound eyes fixed on the active console, then on Jessie and Nora. "I see you've made quite a discovery," Zaxalor said, his tentacles curling in a complex pattern. "The question now is, what shall we do about it?" The tension in the room escalated as Jessie and Nora exchanged glances, acutely aware of the delicate situation they found themselves in. The fate of human-Iridian relations hung in the balance, with the potential to either bridge the gap between their species or widen it irreparably. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, red lights pulsing in sync with the wailing sirens. Zaxalor's appendages twitched in surprise. "It seems our presence here has not gone unnoticed," the minister said, his voice barely audible over the cacophony. As security systems engaged around them, Jessie, Nora, and Zaxalor found themselves trapped in a rapidly escalating situation, with the secrets of Project Empathy Prime and the future of interspecies diplomacy hanging in the balance. Balance. As Jessie and Nora exchanged worried glances, the facility's security systems engaged, sealing off potential escape routes. Zaxalor's compound eyes darted between the human-Iridian pair and the flashing console. In a split-second decision, he extended a tentacle towards the control panel, inputting a complex sequence of commands. "Minister, what are you—" Nora began, but her words were cut short as the alarm suddenly silenced. "My ministerial override," Zaxalor explained, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid clicks. "It's bought us some time, but we must move quickly." Without hesitation, Jessie grabbed the data storage device containing the classified files. The trio darted through the facility's winding corridors, the sound of approaching security forces echoing behind them. As they emerged into the alien twilight of Lumina, Nora took the lead. "This way," she urged, her skin pulsing with urgency. "My residence isn't far." They weaved through the bioluminescent streets, ducking into shadows whenever patrols passed nearby. Jessie's heart pounded in his chest, the adrenaline making every sense hyper-aware. He noticed the way Nora's skin rippled with each nervous glance over her shoulder, the patterns more complex than he'd ever seen before. Finally, they arrived at a sleek structure on the outskirts of the city. Its walls seemed to breathe, pulsing with soft light that mimicked Nora's own bioluminescence. Once inside, Zaxalor secured the entrance, while Nora activated a series of privacy protocols. "We should be safe here for now," she said, her appendages twisting in agitation. Jessie connected the data device to Nora's home terminal, and soon the room was filled with holographic displays of Project Empathy Prime's files. As they delved deeper into the research, the true scope of the project became clear. They were trying to create a device to stimulate emotional responses in our people, Nora whispered, her skin flickering with a mix of awe and apprehension. As Jessie leaned in to examine a particularly intriguing diagram, he felt a strange tingling sensation in his pocket. Before he could react, his modified pheromone emitter activated, releasing a concentrated dose of human pheromones into the air. The effect on Nora was immediate and intense. Her typically stoic demeanor crumbled as her skin erupted in a dazzling display of rapidly shifting colors and patterns. She stumbled backward, her appendages writhing. "Nora!" Jessie exclaimed, rushing to her side. As he reached out to steady her, an unexpected wave of emotion washed over him. He gasped, suddenly overwhelmed by a flood of sensations that weren't his own. Zaxalor observed the scene with scientific curiosity, his tentacles twitching in excitement. "Fascinating," he murmured. "It appears the pheromones are having a more profound effect than we anticipated." As Jessie held Nora, trying to help her through the emotional surge, he found himself experiencing flashes of alien memories and sensations, glimpses of Iridian history, fragments of a collective consciousness he couldn't fully comprehend. Their moment of crisis was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Zira, who burst into the room with an array of medical equipment hovering behind her. "I traced your biosignatures here," she explained, her tentacles already busy setting up monitoring devices. "The data from this interaction could be invaluable." As Dr. Zira's scanners whirred to life, Nora's skin began to exhibit new, complex bioluminescent patterns. The doctor's compound eyes widened in astonishment. "These patterns, they're unlike anything I've ever seen in our species," Dr. Zira exclaimed. "It appears to be a physical manifestation of newly awakened emotional centers." Jessie, still linked to Nora through their strange, empathetic connection, struggled to process the vivid mental imagery flooding his mind. "I can see, feel, so much," he gasped. "Their history, their struggles, the reasons behind their emotional suppression." Zaxler's tentacles curled thoughtfully. "This could change everything," he said, his voice filled with a mix of hope and trepidation. "If we could use this connection, combined with the empathy prime data and Jessie's pheromones, we might be able to awaken emotional responses across our entire population." The room fell silent as the weight of Zaxelor's suggestion sank in. The potential to revolutionize Iridian society and transform human-Iridian relations was enormous, but so were the risks. Before they could fully discuss the implications, a priority transmission from Ambassador Chen cut through the tension. Her holographic form materialized in the center of the room, her expression grave. "Jessie, we've received word that the hostile alien force threatening Earth has been detected at the edge of the Iridian system," Chen reported, her voice tight with urgency. "We need that defense technology now, or Earth won't stand a chance." As the ambassador's words hung in the air, Nora turned to Jessie, her newly awakened emotions evident in the swirling patterns across her skin. Without warning, she pulled him close and pressed her mouth parts to his lips in an unmistakable kiss. Jessie's mind reeled, overwhelmed by the empathetic feedback loop and the sudden, intimate contact. As they parted, both breathless and disoriented, they found themselves at the center of a monumental decision. Dr. Zira's instruments beeped insistently, recording every detail of the unprecedented human-Iridian interaction. Zaxelor stood frozen, his compound eyes darting between the embracing pair and the data displays. And beyond the walls of Nora's residence, the looming threat of an interstellar war inched closer. The fate of two worlds now hung in the balance, with time running out and emotions running high. As Jessie looked into Nora's compound eyes, he knew that whatever they decided next would change the course of history for both their species. Species for both their worlds now hung in the balance, with time running out and emotions running high. As Jessie looked into Nora's compound eyes, he felt a surge of connection unlike anything he had experienced before. The room fell silent, the gravity of the moment weighing heavily on all present. Dr. Zira's medical scanners whirred to life, breaking the stillness as they began recording data from Jessie and Nora's unprecedented interaction. "Fascinating," Dr. Zira clicked, her tentacles dancing over the holographic displays. "Their neural patterns are synchronizing at an unprecedented rate. It's as if their minds are forming a bridge between our species." Zaxler's compound eyes widened as he processed the implications. "This could be the key we've been searching for," he said, his voice filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "If we can harness this connection, we might be able to awaken emotional responses across our entire population." Jessie and Nora slowly separated, both visibly disoriented by the intensity of their shared experience. As Jessie steadied himself, he noticed a faint shimmer on his skin, reminiscent of Nora's bioluminescent patterns. "What's happening to me?" he asked, holding out his arm for the others to see. Dr. Zira quickly adjusted her scanners, focusing on Jessie's physiological changes. "It appears the empathetic link is affecting you on a cellular level," she explained, her voice tinged with awe. "Your body is adapting, developing traits similar to our own." Ambassador Chen's hologram flickered, her expression growing more urgent. "While this development is certainly groundbreaking, we can't forget the immediate threat. The hostile aliens are approaching faster than we anticipated. We need a solution, and we need it now. Zaxalor's tentacles curled thoughtfully as he considered their options. We have the data from Project Empathy Prime, Jesse's pheromone samples, and now this new human Iridian empathetic link. If we combine these elements, we might be able to create a device capable of awakening emotional responses on a massive scale. But what good would that do against an invading force? Nora asked, her skin pulsing with concern. Our people have long suppressed their emotions for the sake of logic and efficiency, Zaxalor explained. But in doing so, we've lost something vital, the passion and drive that emotions can provide. If we can awaken these dormant feelings, it might give us the edge we need to face this threat. The group quickly set to work, their efforts fueled by the urgency of their situation. Dr. Zyra's medical equipment was repurposed to analyze the empathetic link between Jesse and Nora, while Zaxalor used his ministerial access to retrieve additional data from Project Empathy Prime. As they worked tirelessly through the night, Jesse's transformation continued. The bioluminescent patterns on his skin grew more pronounced, pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. He found himself increasingly attuned to the emotions of those around him, picking up on subtle shifts in mood that he would have missed before. Just as they were making significant progress, an unexpected visitor arrived. The door to Nora's residence slid open, revealing a tall, imposing Iridian adorned with military insignia. Minister Zaxalor, the newcomer clicked, his tentacles rigid with formality. I am Kyle, leader of the Iridian military. The High Council has briefed me on the situation. Tension filled the room as Kale surveyed their makeshift laboratory. His gaze lingered on Jesse, taking in the human's altered appearance with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. I've been authorized to offer our assistance, Kale continued, in exchange for assurances that this empathy device won't compromise our defenses. Zaxalor stepped forward, his tentacles moving in a placating gesture. Commander Kyle, I assure you, our goal is to strengthen our people, not weaken them. This device could awaken emotional responses that have been dormant for generations, potentially giving us the edge we need against the approaching threat. Kyle considered this for a moment before nodding slowly. Very well. What do you need? Access to the central communication hub, Nora interjected, her skin flickering with persistence. It's the only way to broadcast the empathetic signal planet-wide. Kale's compound eyes narrowed, but he eventually acquiesced. I can grant you limited access, but we'll need to move quickly. Security will be alerted to any unauthorized presence within minutes. With Kale's assistance, the team quickly gathered their equipment and made their way to the central communication hub. The streets of Lumina were eerily quiet, the city's inhabitants unaware of the monumental events unfolding or the looming threat beyond their world. As they approached the imposing structure of the communication hub, Jesse felt a surge of anxiety. The fate of two worlds rested on the success of their hastily conceived plan. He glanced at Nora, drawing strength from the determined set of her posture. Upon entering the facility, they were immediately confronted by bewildered staff members. Jesse stepped forward, drawing on his diplomatic skills and newfound empathetic abilities. Please, he said, his voice carrying an undercurrent of emotion that seemed to resonate with the Iridians. We're here on urgent business that concerns the safety of your entire world. We need access to the main control room. The staff hesitated, their compound eyes darting between Jesse's altered appearance and Kale's authoritative presence. Finally, they relented, granting the group passage to the heart of the facility. As they began setting up the empathy device, alarms suddenly blared throughout the building. Kyle's communication device crackled to life, filling the air with urgent clicks and whistles. The hostile fleet has entered the system, Kyle translated, his tentacles twitching with agitation. They're moving faster than we anticipated and jamming our long-range communications. Jesse and Nora exchanged a look, a silent understanding passing between them. Without a word, they moved towards the empathy device. We'll connect ourselves directly to the machine, Jesse announced, his voice steady despite the gravity of his decision. Our link should amplify the signal, ensuring it reaches the entire population. Dr. Zira's tentacles writhed with concern. The strain on your systems could be immense. We have no way of knowing the full consequences of such a connection. We don't have a choice, Nora replied, her skin pulsing with a mix of fear and perseverance. It's the only way to ensure the device's success. As Dr. Zyra and Zaxlor made the final preparations, Jessie and Nora positioned themselves on either side of the empathy device. They clasped hands, their fingers intertwining as the machine hummed to life. Zaxlor initiated the empathy wave, and a surge of energy pulsed through the communication hub. Jessie felt as if every nerve in his body was on fire, his consciousness expanding far beyond the confines of his physical form. Beside him, Nora's bioluminescent patterns blazed with unprecedented intensity. The room filled with a dazzling light show as Jessie and Nora's patterns synchronized, their joined minds reaching out to touch the collective consciousness of the entire Iridian race. Through their connection, Jessie caught glimpses of a vast alien awareness, the hopes, fears, and long-suppressed emotions of an entire civilization awakening all at once. As the empathy wave spread across Aridus, the control room erupted into a flurry of activity. Reports flooded in from across the planet, describing Iridians experiencing intense emotional states for the first time in generations. Some reacted with joy and wonder, while others struggled to cope with the sudden influx of feelings. Amidst the chaos, Kale received urgent communications from his military command. The Iridian Defense Forces, now grappling with newfound emotions, were in disarray. Some soldiers were paralyzed by fear, while others were filled with a burning desire to protect their world. As Jessie and Nora channeled the immense emotional energy, their bodies began to convulse. Dr. Zira's instruments detected massive spikes in neural activity, far beyond anything she had ever observed. "We need to disconnect them," Dr. Zira shouted, her tentacles flying over the device's controls. "Their minds are operating on a level beyond normal consciousness. If we don't pull them out soon, we may lose them entirely." Zaxlor moved to assist, his own emotions now in turmoil as he fought to maintain his focus. As they worked frantically to safely disconnect Jessie and Nora, Kale rushed to reorganize the Iridian defenses, keenly aware that the hostile alien fleet was drawing ever closer. The fate of both Aridus and Earth hung in the balance as Jessie and Nora slipped deeper into their shared consciousness, their bodies locked in a coma-like state. The success of the empathy wave remained uncertain, its full impact yet to be determined. And beyond the boundaries of the Iridian system, the hostile alien threat loomed, poised to test the newly awakened emotions of an entire civilization. Civilization poised on the brink of an alien invasion. In the control room, Dr. Zyra's tentacles danced frantically over her instruments, her compound eyes fixed on the neural activity readings of Jessie and Nora. The human and Iridian lay motionless, their bodies intertwined and pulsing with an otherworldly glow. "Their neural patterns are completely intertwined," Dr. Zyra clicked urgently. "I've never seen anything like it. We need to disconnect them before their minds become permanently fused." Zaxlor moved to assist, his own newly awakened emotions threatening to overwhelm his focus. Together, they worked to untangle the complex web of synaptic connections that had formed between Jessie and Nora's minds. Outside the communication hub, chaos reigned. The empathy wave had swept across Iridian society, awakening long-dormant emotions in millions of individuals simultaneously. The streets of Lumina filled with Iridians experiencing joy, fear, anger, and confusion for the first time in generations. Commander Kyle's communication device crackled with urgent reports from his military units. Many soldiers found themselves paralyzed by fear or overcome with conflicting emotions, rendering them unable to perform their duties. "This is unacceptable," Kyle clicked, his tentacles twitching with frustration. "We need a functional defense force immediately." In a bold move, Kyle turned to the civilian population. He identified a group of Iridian females who had been most strongly affected by Jessie's pheromones, their newly awakened emotions providing them with a unique perspective. "You," Kyle addressed the group, his voice filled with authority. "Your emotional awakening may be the key to our survival. Will you join our defense efforts?" Led by an Iridian named Lyra, the group stepped forward. Lyra's skin pulsed with a mix of purpose and excitement as she replied, "We will do whatever it takes to protect our world." Kyle quickly integrated the civilian volunteers into combat simulations. To his surprise, their emotional responses led to unprecedented levels of creativity and adaptability in tactical scenarios. Meanwhile, Ambassador Chen made a critical decision. Recognizing the dire situation facing both Aridus and Earth, she established an emergency communication link with human military command. "This is Ambassador Chen," she spoke into the secure channel. "I am requesting immediate deployment of human military forces to the Iridian system. The situation here is critical." As the first human reinforcements began to arrive at the outer edges of the Iridian system, Dr. Zira made a startling discovery. Her instruments detected rapid mutations in Jessie's DNA, incorporating elements of Iridian genetic structure. "Fascinating," Dr. Zira murmured, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her concern. "Jessie's body is adapting to produce bioluminescent patterns similar to our own, and his neural pathways, they've been permanently altered." Nora's body underwent similar changes, her Iridian physiology adapting to incorporate human-like emotional processing centers. As Dr. Zira and Zaxalor worked to safely disconnect the pair from the empathy device, the implications of these changes began to sink in. "This hybrid physiology," Zaxalor mused, his tentacles curling thoughtfully, "it could be the key to long-term cooperation between our species." Just as they were about to attempt the final disconnection, alarms blared throughout the facility. Kyle rushed to a nearby console, his compound eyes widening as he processed the incoming data. "The hostile fleet has entered the outer reaches of our solar system," Kyle announced, his voice tense. "We're out of time." Zaxalor's mind raced, considering their options. Suddenly, an idea formed. A risky, potentially game-changing plan. He turned to address the others, his skin pulsing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "We can use the empathy device again," Zaxalor explained rapidly, "but this time, we'll aim it at the invading aliens. With Jessie and Nora's hybrid physiology amplifying the signal, we might be able to incapacitate their forces or even open a channel for emotional understanding." The proposal sparked intense debate among the Iridian High Council members who had gathered in the control room. Some, overwhelmed by fear, advocated for immediate surrender. Others, fueled by newfound courage, pushed for all-out military confrontation. As the Council's debate threatened to paralyze Iridian leadership, Lyra and her group of emotionally awakened Iridian females stepped forward. Lyra's skin flickered with passionate hues as she addressed the Council. "Esteemed leaders," Lyra began, her voice carrying a mix of logic and emotional conviction. "We stand at a crossroads. This plan, while risky, offers us a chance not just for survival, but for a new understanding between species. We must seize this opportunity." Lyra's impassioned plea, backed by the unified support of her group, swayed the Council. They approved Zaxalor's plan, setting in motion a flurry of activity to prepare for this unprecedented attempt at emotional warfare. As the final preparations were made, Dr. Zira succeeded in safely disconnecting Jessie and Nora from the empathy device. The pair awoke slowly, their bodies forever changed by the experience. As they regained consciousness, they found themselves able to communicate without words, sharing a deep mental and emotional bond. Jessie blinked, his eyes adjusting to the room's dim light. He turned to Nora, a mix of awe and purpose on his face. "We have to do it again," he said, his voice hoarse but resolute. "We have to reach out to the invading fleet." Nora's skin pulsed in agreement, her compound eyes meeting Jessie's gaze with equal persistence. As they prepared to reconnect to the modified empathy device, they shared a moment of intense intimacy, their hybrid physiologies allowing for a unique fusion of human and Iridian expressions of affection. With time running out, Jessie and Nora positioned themselves once more beside the empathy device. Their hybrid bodies glowed with an intense bioluminescence, pulsing in sync with each other and the machine. Zaxalor initiated the broadcast, and a powerful wave of emotional energy began to pulse outward from Aridus. Jessie and Nora, at the heart of this unprecedented attempt at interspecies communication, felt their consciousness expand beyond the confines of the planet, reaching out towards the approaching alien fleet. As the emotional waves surged through space, the occupants of the control room held their breath, watching the monitors for any sign of the signal's impact on the invading forces. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance, with Jessie and Nora's hybrid bond serving as a bridge not just between human and Iridian, but potentially to an entirely new form of interstellar understanding. Communication, its effects rippling through the vast expanse of space. As the emotional energy wave surged outward, it collided with the advanced shielding technology of the hostile alien fleet. Instead of dissipating, the wave interacted with the shields in an unexpected way. The energy began to loop back on itself, growing stronger with each cycle. In the control room, Dr. Zira's instruments lit up with a flurry of activity. Her tentacles flew across the console as she analyzed the readings. "The wave! It's amplifying itself!" she exclaimed, her compound eyes widening in amazement. The magnified emotional surge slammed into the alien ships with tremendous force. Systems sparked and failed across the fleet as the overwhelming emotional energy flooded their circuits. Ship after ship went dark, drifting aimlessly in space. Kyle, who had been coordinating with the human reinforcements, saw the opportunity presented by this unexpected turn of events. He quickly opened a channel to the combined Human Iridian Defense Force. "All units, this is Commander Kale. The enemy fleet is temporarily immobilized. Initiate defensive maneuver Gamma 7. The response was immediate. Human ships, piloted by experienced Earth military personnel, moved into formation alongside Iridian vessels. But it was the performance of the civilian Iridians that truly surprised Kale. Lyra and her group, their newly awakened emotions heightening their intuition, demonstrated remarkable skill in operating the Iridian defense systems. They anticipated the hostile aliens' moves with uncanny accuracy, outmaneuvering them at every turn. "Commander," Lyra's voice crackled over the comm, "we've detected a weak point in their formation. Requesting permission to lead a strike team." Kyle hesitated for a moment, his own newfound emotions conflicting with his tactical training. But as he watched Lyra's team effortlessly evade enemy fire, he made his decision. "Permission granted. Show them what Iridians are capable of, Lyra." As the battle raged in space, Jesse and Nora remained connected to the empathy device. Their hybrid bodies glowed with an intensity that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Tendrils of energy arced between them and the machine, creating a mesmerizing light show. Dr. Zira noticed something strange on her monitors. "Zaxalor, look at this," she called, gesturing to a screen displaying Jesse and Nora's biological readings. "Their bodies are emitting some kind of radiation I've never seen before." Zaxler leaned in, his tentacles curling with curiosity. "Fascinating. It appears to be interfering with the hostile aliens' communication systems." Indeed, across the battlefield, the invading forces found themselves plunged into confusion. Their carefully coordinated attack patterns fell apart as ship captains lost contact with each other and their central command. Ambassador Chen, who had been observing the unfolding events, stepped forward. Her face was a mask of persistence as she addressed the Iridian High Council members present in the control room. "Esteemed Council," she began, her voice steady despite the chaos around them, "I believe we have an unprecedented opportunity before us. The radiation emitted by Jesse and Nora could be the key to creating a planet-wide shield for Aridus." The council members chittered amongst themselves, their newly awakened emotions causing rapid shifts in the bioluminescent patterns across their bodies. Some pulsed with excitement at the possibility, while others flickered with fear and uncertainty. As the debate intensified, Dr. Zira's instruments began to emit a series of urgent beeps. She turned to the screens, her tentacles flying over the controls as she analyzed the data. This is incredible," she muttered, her voice filled with awe. "The genetic changes in Jesse and Nora, they've unlocked something, a dormant ability in their hybrid DNA." Zaxler moved to her side, his own scientific curiosity piqued. "What kind of ability?" Dr. Zira's compound eyes gleamed with excitement as she replied, "The ability to generate and control the same type of energy used in our defensive technology. It's as if their bodies have become living generators of Iridian defensive energy." The implications of this discovery sent shockwaves through the control room. Ambassador Chen's eyes widened as she realized the potential impact on Earth's defenses. Before anyone could fully process this information, alarms blared throughout the facility. Kale rushed to a nearby console, his tentacles twitching with tension as he read the incoming data. "We have a breach," he announced, his voice grim. "A small group of hostile aliens has managed to land on Aridus. They're heading for this facility." The room erupted into a flurry of activity. Kyle quickly assembled a team of emotionally enhanced Iridian soldiers and human allies. "We must protect the empathy device and Jesse and Nora at all costs," he ordered. As Kyle's team moved out to engage the intruders, the alien commander, Vex Thor, led his forces towards the heart of the facility. But with each step, Vex Thor found himself grappling with unfamiliar sensations. The lingering effects of the empathy wave were beginning to penetrate his mental defenses, awakening emotions he had never experienced before. Inside the control room, Jesse and Nora remained oblivious to the approaching danger, their minds still linked to the empathy device. As the battle drew closer, their hybrid physiology continued to evolve, adapting to the incredible energies flowing through them. The fate of 3 species hung in the balance as Kale's forces prepared to confront Vex Thor's team. The outcome of this encounter would shape not only the immediate future of Aridus and Earth, but potentially the entire galactic landscape. As the battle raged on, Jesse and Nora's connection to the empathy device began to wane. Their hybrid bodies, glowing with an otherworldly light, slowly returned to a state of normalcy. Dr. Zishra and Zach Salor worked diligently to safely disconnect them from the machine, monitoring their vital signs closely. When Jesse and Nora finally opened their eyes, they found themselves surrounded by a crowd of anxious faces, human, Iridian, and to their surprise, members of Vex Thor's species. The room buzzed with a mixture of relief and curiosity. Dr. Zyra's tentacles flew over her instruments, her compound eyes widening as she processed the data. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Their hybrid physiology has undergone further changes. It appears they're producing a complex mixture of pheromones and bioluminescent signals." Ambassador Chen stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the readings. "What are the implications of this, Doctor?" Before Dr. Zyra could respond, a ripple of emotion swept through the room. The Iridian's skin flickered with patterns of calm and contentment, while the humans visibly relaxed. Even the captured members of Vex Thor's species seemed less agitated. Zaxler's tentacles curled in excitement. "It seems their new biochemistry can influence the emotional states of all 3 species. This is unprecedented." As the implications of this discovery sank in, Ambassador Chen's mind raced with possibilities. She turned to address the gathered crowd, her voice filled with purpose. "We stand at the threshold of a new era. This development could revolutionize interspecies relations across the galaxy." Over the next few days, as the immediate crisis subsided, Chen worked tirelessly with the Iridian High Council and representatives from Vex Thor's people. The result of their negotiations was a bold new initiative, the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Program. The program's centerpiece was the establishment of a tri-species colony on a nearby habitable moon. Volunteers from all 3 races would live and work together, forging new bonds of understanding and cooperation. When it came time to choose leaders for this ambitious project, all eyes turned to Jesse and Nora. Their unique hybrid nature made them ideal candidates to bridge the gap between the different species. As preparations for the colony began, Jesse and Nora found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. They worked closely with scientists, diplomats, and cultural experts to design living spaces and social structures that would accommodate the needs of all 3 species. The day of departure arrived with great fanfare. As the colonists boarded their transport ships, Jesse and Nora stood hand in hand, their skin pulsing with patterns of excitement and anticipation. They shared a look of deep understanding, their bond stronger than ever. The journey to the moon was uneventful, but the real challenges began as soon as the colonists set foot on their new home. Cultural misunderstandings arose almost immediately, particularly regarding concepts of personal space, family units, and reproductive practices. One evening, as Jesse and Nora walked through the colony's central plaza, they noticed a group of Iridian females huddled together, their skin flickering with patterns of distress and confusion. As they approached, the Iridian's agitation visibly subsided, calmed by the couple's presence. One of the Iridians, her voice trembling, explained their predicament. "We're experiencing sensations we don't understand. Our bodies feel strange, and our emotions are overwhelming." Nora's eyes widened with recognition. Drawing on her own experiences of physiological changes, she realized what was happening. "You're going through your first mating cycle," she explained gently. "These new emotions and physical responses are natural, but I understand how confusing they must be." Over the next few hours, Nora led an impromptu education session, sharing her knowledge and experiences with the Iridian females. Jesse, feeling somewhat out of his depth, excused himself to inform Dr. Zira of the situation. This incident led to the establishment of the colony's first Interspecies Health and Wellness Center. Staffed by experts from all three species, it became a vital resource for addressing the unique physiological and emotional needs of the hybrid community. As weeks turned into months, the colony began to flourish. The presence of Jesse and Nora, with their calming pheromones and empathetic abilities, played a crucial role in smoothing over conflicts and fostering understanding between the different species. Their relationship, too, continued to deepen. Their hybrid physiologies allowed for an intense emotional and physical connection that transcended traditional species boundaries. Their union became a symbol of hope and possibility for interspecies relationships across the galaxy. 1 year after the colony's founding, news of its success began to spread. Delegations from other species arrived, eager to learn from the tri-species experiment. Jesse and Nora found themselves hosting diplomats, scientists, and cultural experts from across the galaxy. During one such visit, as Jesse led a tour group through the colony's agricultural sector, he felt a sudden wave of dizziness. His skin began to pulse with an intense bioluminescent glow. Concerned, he excused himself and hurried to find Nora. He found her in their shared living quarters, her body also emitting a brilliant light. Their eyes met, and without words they understood. Something new was happening. Their bodies were changing once again, adapting to their unique environment and experiences. As they embraced, their bioluminescent patterns synchronized, creating a dazzling display. Outside their window, the alien moon's landscape stretched to the horizon, a testament to the new world they were building, a world where boundaries between species blurred and new forms of connection and understanding were possible. The future stretched before them, full of challenges and possibilities. As leaders of this bold experiment in interspecies cooperation, Jesse and Nora knew their journey was nowhere near the end. But for now, they held each other close, their hybrid bodies glowing with shared emotion and the promise of discoveries yet to come.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.